Welcome to the Men Are the Prize podcast. I'm glad that you're here with us, and I am thrilled to have Shane Thrapp with us. How you doing today, Shane?
I'm doing great, man.
Fantastic. Thank you for opening yourself up and throwing yourself into this. This is it's still a new endeavor for me. So I'm glad that you're gonna allow me you be a guinea pig for me with this. And I'll do my best not to hurt you when we go about this. But I
Yeah,
think it should be fun and pretty informative.
yeah, this is a blast. You've got a really good setup. I really love this concept of prize. As soon as I saw that, I said I need to be involved in that.
That is
That's something I like.
That is
So
awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad. So before we get started, just something I want to make clear to any listener. There's very few things that I'm an expert in. The one thing I'm an expert in is being me and being the man that I can be. I'm not a psychotherapist or a psychologist. I'm not trained in this. This is just something that I wanted to do. I wanted to talk to men so we can open up, discuss life, all these issues that we have going on. So while I hope you may find this podcast informative and helpful, I in no way am trained to do this. So just a disclaimer, I hope you enjoy it, but I can't give you advice. I didn't get trained for that, but I hope this is fun nonetheless. With that said, Shane, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So we're going to start with this. Obviously, we're going to be talking about you and a few things that have gone on in your life, but I want you to start with this. If you could give me a 30-second bio about you, just about you right now, excluding the things that have happened to you, but about you right now, could you give me one?
Oh yeah,
All
absolutely.
right, 30 seconds, go.
I'm a stay-at-home dad of four kids. I have twin 2-year-olds. I've got an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old. Um, I am a regular guy, to be completely truthful. I've you know I've learned to be proud of being a stay-at-home dad, and so that's just the biggest part of my life. And then I decided to become a life coach and like launch this business out of just nowhere. And with all the different things that I've had to deal with, uh, I'm just living life now. I'm a lot happier than I have been in a long time. I'm feeling accomplished. I'm feeling qualified. I'm feeling fulfilled, and things are really starting to look up for me. Um,
Excellent.
I'm just a good old boy from the South, you know what I mean?
Sounds good, man. Sounds good, Shane. That's good. So you gave me one, and I'm going to ask you for one at the end, but hopefully what we talk about will inform it, and maybe it'll be a little bit different. But here we go. So if you've listened to this podcast before, or if you happen to see the title, my favorite word is prize. P-R-I-Z-E. So I took that and made a mantra out of it. The four of the letters represent something, and the I is the end. So we'll start with P, and that word is purpose. Purpose is defined as reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. So, Shane, my first question as we get into this is, what is your purpose?
My purpose is to be a muse. I want to be a muse for the people who are around me and who I interact with and who I deal with on a daily basis. I want to be that person that they know that they can go to and say, I'm having a problem with my life. I'm having a problem with this book. I'm having a problem with my job, my career, my parenting. I want to be able to help people to brainstorm through ideas, problem solve the things that they're going through, and then I want those people to have a life of freedom and enjoyment and just fulfillment of what they want to do outside of the social construct that we've been constrained in from childhood. And I want people to break free from that in as many ways as they can and understand that normal doesn't exist. That's a social construct meant to constrain people into a set pattern of be a productive citizen of the country that you're in or the state that you're in. Be productive. And we don't need to be productive in the way that other people feel we should be. We need to be productive doing the things that make us happy and make us successful. And
Excellent.
I want to be that muse for that.
That's good. How long have you known that was your purpose?
Man, um, How long have I known it? A couple of years now, since 2018. Um, how long have I done it? Since I was a teenager. I've always been that guy. I've always been very protective of my friends, and that meant I was always there for them. I grew up as a lonely child, a only child on a farm that was literally 20 miles from the nearest village of 2,000 people. So I've always had a very alone aspect of my life, and I fought against it constantly. And some of that was unhealthy coping mechanisms,
Right.
but much of it was just because I wanted people to be happy, you know. And I tell jokes, I crack humor all over the place. I've got, all of these different things that I use to make people happy. But I want to be a meaningful happiness bringer. You know what I mean? I
Right.
want people to find that fulfillment in the things that I show them or help them understand about themselves, and go from there. Um, so for how long have I known that I wanted to do that? Since 2018. How long have I been doing it? As long as I can remember.
That's good. So I guess it's kind of innate
Yeah.
in your personality that you want to help people. That's
Hmm.
I think that it leads into you being a good parent.
Hmm.
It sounds like you are a nurturer. And
Yeah.
that's not something that's always assumed as a father. I'm a
Yeah.
stay-at-home dad, just like you are, 4 kids, just like you are. And there's always this assumption that we're helping, we're not raising, we're not there, we can't give those hugs, we can't be there for the kid. But it sounds like that's in you. That's your
Yeah.
very nature to
It is
take
in
care
me.
of people.
Yeah, it is in me, and especially whenever I was first diagnosed with ADHD in 2016. You know, I didn't have a clue why I was so different from other people. I grew up like I had an abusive dad, and um, you know, looking back, I can see all of the characteristics that he has that are part of my negatives that I work on every day. I see all the things that he was going through, and I understand why and what he was doing to try to be a normal person. Again, that social construct, he's growing up trying to be as normal as he could, but he wasn't normal
Right.
according to society. And I'm breaking that generational abuse pattern, and I'm doing it every day. It's an ongoing battle because of all these issues that you deal with and the upbringing you have. It forms the way that you do things in the future, especially as a parent. We only have in our lifetimes a few people we consider a parental figure. Some people have adopted families, some people have step families, some people have aunts and uncles or grandfathers and grandmothers who raised them. But we only have those few people that teach us within our formative years how to be a parent. That's all we have.
Yeah.
And if we take all of the negativity that a lot of people are inundated with, and take that into our relationships in the futures, that's where we see the breakdowns. That's where we see the generational abuses. That's where we see the passing down of the abuse curse, the alcoholism curse, the addiction curse, um, the prison pipeline of not having a father figure in your life, or not having a mother figure in your life, and what kind of damage that does to you ongoing. And in my life, what I want to do is I want to provide everything to my children that I didn't have. And that doesn't mean materialistically. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I don't have the finances to be able to sit here and say, I can give you everything, but I can give you my love. I can give you the space and the environment to grow up in a household where when you say something, people listen to you. When you talk about your feelings, nobody ridicules you. And if they do, they know that their father or their mother both have their backs completely. Like, I'm always going to be there for my kids. You know, but that doesn't mean I'm permissive. That doesn't mean I don't provide structure or boundaries or anything like that. That's a part of the process. And as a parent now, and as along all the stuff that I've learned about ADHD, I know that that's inheritable. So all of the processes and things that I've learned on how to deal with my ADHD, I can start that when they start doing their formative years. I can give them that environment to improve. I can give them that environment to learn the way that they need to learn to process the information. I can give them that environment of safety and remove the trauma that is inherent almost in every family who has a child who is neurodivergent or has ADHD or things like that. Because what happens is ADHD is and other neurodivergent issues are compounded by the trauma that's instigated upon them by the people who are honestly doing their best in most cases, but don't understand how to speak to children. They don't understand how to speak to children who are neurodivergent. They allow the assumptions that because the person is different, that they're dumb. You know, you see this in nonverbal autistic children. You see this in the really hyper fidgety ADHD. You see this in children who are in other areas who have oppositional disorders, or or in the DSM-5 they call them. Oh man, I knew I would run into this one. But they're disruptive disorders is the breakdown of what they call it. And these people aren't disruptive. They're misunderstood.
Mhm.
People don't understand what they're trying to say, and they don't have the skills or the ability to express what they're trying to say in a method that normal people, neurotypical people don't understand. And
So
so
listen, oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off.
go for it.
As I hear you talking, it seems to me that you, and maybe I'm wrong, it seems like you became what you needed as a child. It
Mhm.
feels like you became the person who could communicate with the child who neurodivergent, like you mentioned. You became that safe space. You became all the things that maybe you didn't get as a child. So I'm wondering, your purpose came a lot earlier than maybe you recognized. And in a way, you needed to be that for yourself, and feels like you took care of yourself, but then you took it and you ran with it for your family. And then you're going to spread that kind of purpose to the world.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
I had to grow up very quickly. When you're different, and you're in an abusive childhood, the thing about ADHD and being in a situation where you're constantly in a fight or flight um, mindset, that adds trauma. Now, what people don't really understand about ADHD is that um, we aren't disabled. We're not um, we're not damaged. We're not broken. We are different. Most people in our society is built around a production. They are the farmers. They were the agricultural groups that built up societies and civilization as we knew it. But people with ADHD show a lot more in common with hunter gatherers. And there have been a number of studies, especially in places like Kenya and other places in Africa, where they have much closer roots to nomadic tribes that have a higher prevalence of hunter gatherer type of people, and those people all share the same genetic markers for having ADHD.
Oh,
But
wow.
those people thrive in those environments, whereas people who are agricultural minded, or they're more of the settling down and staying in one place, building the security, those people are the builders. You know, people with ADHD a lot of times have this very energetic, explore the world, find the secrets, delve into the things. They're high risk, high reward kind of people. And in an environment where they thrive, they thrive. You see them just fly past everybody around them. They're just these sky high, rocketing minds of power. But in today's society that has taught us that we need to be productive members of the society, of the status quo, we don't fit into those boxes. We don't fit into that thing. So you see us traveling a lot. You see us losing our jobs because we don't fit in all the time, or we're bored and we self-destruct. Um, we don't fit into relationships where we're with the same person forever. You know, society tells us that we're meant to be with one person for 50 years. The successful relationship, no matter the journey, is that you died on your spouse. You know, the that's that journey is completely ignored. Why do I want to be with a person who I'm miserable with for 30 years after I've learned that this person isn't the person that I fell in love with, right? After
Right.
20 years, people change.
True.
We, if we're not changing, we are broken. If you're not growing, you, there, you have to grow. That's the way that our universe works. It expands out, it goes forward, it moves up, it explodes outwards. We're meant to travel forward. And if we're stagnating and we're staying the same person we are now as we were when we're 20, we are failing life.
Agreed. Agreed. That's important. I think, especially in relationships, and that's one thing I think people don't take seriously, is that the person that you stood in front of and and took those vows is not the person that you're going to when you buy your first house is going to be, or is going to be the person a year from then when you have that first anniversary. We have to expect change. You have to embrace it. And when we don't, it makes life harder because we can't be the exact same person. But we're going to move on. I really love what you said, but you
Yeah.
spoke a lot about the trauma, a lot that you went through growing up, and that leads into the next letter, and that is R. And the word is resilience. Definition of resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. So it seems to me like your childhood is you must have showed a whole lot of resilience. You had a lot to go through, but how did it rectify with you? How do you feel your resilience came out? How did you become stronger? Any particular situations that you just decided, listen, I have to be better. I can't let this take me down. Do you have moments like that growing up?
There's a there's a lot of moments like that. Some of them worse than others. There's a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms that you develop in a trauma situation,
Right.
that you kind of have to deal with. There's a number of times where I can look back and I can say, this is when I had enough of what my dad was doing to me. Now, at the time, it didn't work out the way I planned. In my mind, I said, I'm going to stand up to my dad. I'm 6'1". I'm 285 pounds. I'm a solid muscle beefcake that plays football, works out. I've got, at this point, 2 years of martial arts training because I did backyard wrestling. And I said, I'm going to stand up to my dad. And my dad backhanded me through into a 360 onto the ground with one shot. So, but I had made the step, right? I had made the step to say, I'm done with this. I'm done with being abused. I'm done with this. And I left. I didn't win the fight, but I did stand up and say, I'm done. And I was homeless, that was my first time of being homeless. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anywhere really to go. I stayed in my, beat up Chevy Sprint car for 2 months until I finally had the ability to 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 get into a trust fund that I had, that my mom had set up for me. And once I was able to get on my feet, me and my mom had kind of started patching things up. So she let me come live with her for the last part of my school year. And she let me move in with her for a few months, but then she said, I'm moving to Houston. And I lived in Texarkana at the time. I'm moving to Houston. You're on your own. And I was like, I work at Burger King. I work 20 hours a week and I go to school the rest of the time. How? And she goes, I don't know. I said, no, that's not how this is going to work. I was like, you took me in. I'm still your responsibility. And I need help. And as a parent, that's what you're supposed to do, is you're supposed to help. you're supposed to be there for me. And I put my foot down, and we finally worked it out. There was a lot of yelling and cursing at each other, but we finally worked it out where, you know, she would help me with bills and stuff like that. But the agreement was both of us working together. She would help me with the bills and stuff like that, but I still had to keep a job,
Right.
and I still had to graduate. And that was our agreement that we made. But it was me saying, no, you're not going to walk over me like that. And I understand that you're dealing with the same trauma that my dad put us through, but you're not going to put that trauma on me alone. And that struck a nerve with her. And
Wow, that's
yeah,
big. I mean, between standing up to your father and you said I don't want I heard you say that you didn't win the fight. You may not have won that fight, but you definitely won that battle. I'd like to
yeah,
say, because
yeah.
you know, you didn't put your hands on your dad, you didn't do that, but the fact that you even stood up, that's a victory right there. And then two, realizing, you know, putting your mother on notice, you have to do this. I didn't choose to be brought into this world. You have to take care of me, and standing up for yourself, which sounds like something that you weren't doing in the past.
No, I
You
was,
yeah, life was hard. And from that, you became stronger. You
yeah,
became, yeah, go ahead.
I was a quiet kid. Because I was so big, I was very aware of my size and how strong I was.
Okay.
Um, and I was also very aware of how smart I was. But I got made fun of a lot for both things. You know, the person who's sitting here making fun of me being a little overweight, but it wasn't really I was overweight. It's just big, you know, corn-fed Texas boy, right?
Right.
And you know, but people saw that, and of course, bullies being bullies and stuff like that. There was these moments where, okay, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. And I kind of started losing myself. And then after that situation happened with my dad, there was a number of situations that kind of happened after that where I didn't put up with it anymore. And from that point on, I've never put up with bullies. I never, ever, ever put up with bullies. I don't put up with people who abuse people. I don't put up with people who abuse children. Um, if you ever wanted to see me be violent, that's how you get me to be violent.
Right.
Right? I don't like violence. It's not my nature. But I will defend those who can't defend themselves. You know, I white knight the hell out of stuff. Like, I don't mean to, but like I'm always I cannot not help people I see in need. It's just it's completely out of my nature, especially if it's things that I dealt with, like child abuse and spousal abuse and things like that. I just can't do it.
I hear you. It all comes back. You're really protecting people who look like you or grew up like you. You're really kind of being your protector, and you're just passing that on to other people. So I
Yeah.
definitely see that. The next letter, because we're going to keep going on. You hit me really well with these. The next letter we're going to skip. I is the next letter in the word prize, but it's the final letter in this mantra. We're going to skip. The next letter is Z, and the word is zeal. Zeal, which is my favorite word in this. I love this. Zeal is enthusiastic devotion. What are you enthusiastically devoted to? What do you love in life?
I hate to sound like a broken record, but I absolutely love helping people. You know, I'm not the guy that goes and volunteers at a soup kitchen or things like that. And I really appreciate and applaud people who are able to do that. Um, it's on top of having social anxiety disorder, it's very hard for me to be out in public like that and things of that nature ever since I got sick in 2016.
Mhm.
Um, you know, you have to adjust to the limitations that are kind of put on your body. Just like if somebody loses their arm, you know, they have to adjust to not having that arm.
Right.
The same thing kind of happened to me because I used to be a public speaker. I used to run a couple of nonprofits for science education and things like that, and I was very good at it, and I still am. But now I have to deal with this crippling anxiety when it comes to being around people. By the way, COVID doesn't help.
I'm sure.
So like not only do I have you know, this overactive paranoia about you know, people harming me in some ways, which is completely irrational. I also now have to deal with the fact that people can harm me
Right.
because people don't pay attention. They're not paying attention to the mask mandates. They're not getting vaccinated. It's like why am I afraid of uh, um, you know people driving in the snow or when it snows? It's not because I'm a bad driver. I'm a
Right.
great driver in the snow. People in the South, we don't know how to drive in snow. No, it doesn't work. But no, zeal. My passion is just being a muse. I want people to be able to be the creative outlet or have the creative outlets that they want and need, and I want to be able to inspire that drive into being who and what and how they want to be. I want them to be able to love the people that they love, and I want them to have the life that they want to have, and I want to teach them how to do it. So there's my zeal in that. I also love my kids. My kids are my passion. I love seeing them grow. My son sang his ABCs to me today, and he's 2.5 years old. You know, I want to. I have my other two kids they stay with their mother primarily in Texas, and so I don't get to see them as often as I want to. There's some other issues there that are just because I was young, dumb, and stupid. I made a few mistakes and didn't do the things that I should have done, and I'm still paying for those mistakes, but I learned from them. Um, but yeah, my kids, I love seeing them just being and loving and happy and moving forward. And uh, I I love creativity. I love seeing art and people's ability to express themselves. I may not understand their art. There's a lot of like art that's out there that I'm like, okay, I feel like you just threw a paint bucket at the wall and just said, but if it's your art, I am here for you. You know, so I just that whole aspect of creativity, and that comes from the fact that I'm not able to be as creative as I want to be. Um, I, I'm I I don't have the ability to visualize things like other people can. Like when you talk about a painting and stuff like that, if I don't see it, I can't visualize it.
Right. Right.
So like whereas you can sit here and say, all right, I want to paint a canvas and it's going to have these figures on it on this kind of background. All that when you describe that to me, all it is really blurry. And when I try to transfer what I am thinking onto paper or into a medium, it doesn't work unless it's writing. I'm really good at writing, but I think not having that creative outlet really made me drive to be able to help other people's creativity. One of the funny jokes that I like to tell people is the old one. Um, those who can do, those who can't teach. And so uh, it's self-deprecating, and I understand that, but it fits the kind of situation that I'm in. You know,
Hear you. Are you a creative writer?
I am a creative writer. I do run into some problems, and it's one of the reasons why I haven't written a book is I can't fill out the meat of a book. The dialogue and the back and forth between a couple of people sitting around a campfire. I can't get that out. You know, I can create worlds. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons all the time.
Right.
I used to create these fantastic worlds based on all of these things that I used to read and these different people, and I can build all of these different societies and run through like historical scenarios for thousands of years to evolve a society into a different society. I can do all of that creatively, but I can't translate that into writing and
Mm.
like a novel where it has that meat of the bones. And so what I do now is I help writers who are having creative issues and they need to they need a city, and what is that city based on? And so I go into these different political things, and I have this like vast library of knowledge of different politics and historical examples and stuff like that, and I start breaking everything down very clinically. And since I was a project manager by trade, that's kind of how I break everything down. And uh so that creativity is still, it's more of a muse. I create the environment for creativity.
I never played Dungeons and Dragons, so I don't know a lot about it. But in it, aren't you? I mean, you're creating worlds, but aren't you kind of creating characters too as you're
Hmm.
going along?
Yeah.
So have you ever considered, and I don't know, again, off the top of my head, but if you can create worlds and characters with it, have you ever considered just doing it within that kind of format? You're trying to create a conversation. And what if you were the person and you just kind of sat around and instead of you talking to five people, it's just you kind of talking to yourself and kind of mimicking or playing each part. And maybe you can kind of get it up, maybe record it and then maybe kind of listen to it later.
I've actually tried to do that. This falls back into I'm a socially awkward person.
Okay.
So, you know, I can I can imagine the idea of another person and kind of have their I how would they respond to things and stuff like that, but the dialogue never gets anywhere.
Okay.
Um, Now, in Dungeons and Dragons, you have a dungeon master, game master, and then you have 4 to 6 people who are kind of responding to the environment that you're giving them. And I'm very good at creating the characters. Oh, how are you doing there, sons? I'd like to get you to buy something for me. I need you to go down the road. And I can do that. I can do that very well.
Right.
But it has to be in the moment. It has to be when I'm inspired in the moment. I'm a kinesthetic learner, so it's a back and forth thing for me. And I respond to what they tell me. Now, can you get a group of people together and write a book in that way? Yes. However, you have to find those people.
Right.
And that's very, very, very difficult to do in the writing world because there's so much danger in um, um, creative licenses
Right.
between a number of people. And it's almost always, if this did get big, how do you compensate those people who helped
Right.
you in the process?
Right.
Like, and so it's very difficult to find a number of writers who are willing to sit down with you and kind of go through that and play that game with you and role play out what it is. um it exists, but it's very hard to get into.
I can imagine. I can imagine. All right. So I like zeal too. I love that word. It always brings out a better conversation and other interests and such. The last letter in the word prize, the last word is expectation. Expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. So the way I like to break this down is expectations for you. If you can give me what you expect of yourself in 1 year, in 5 years, and in 10 years, what do you want? What do you want to create? What do you want to be? That's different from now. What are you aiming to do in 12 months versus 60 months or 10 years? What do you envision?
um Within 1 year, my kids are going to be getting ready to go into pre-K, and so my expectations now is preparing my kids to be a part of that kind of system and making sure that they understand, even at this age, how to come back and talk to me about what they're dealing with. They're still learning how to talk. They're getting a lot more expressive, but until they hit 3, they don't really have a whole lot of outside awareness. So like they don't recognize that if they're piled on top of their sister, that she doesn't like that. They don't understand those boundaries, and so we're still teaching that. Um, my personal expectations of me are to continue being a good husband to my wife. My wife is a special needs teacher, and so I 100% want to make sure she's able to have that environment of her creativity and needing her space to be able to um, process through what she's having to deal with, because her job is very difficult.
Right.
Because not only is she a teacher in North Carolina, which is one of the lowest paying states in the country for teachers, she's
Mhm.
also a special needs teacher, and she loves her job. And not a lot of people can do her job. She's a special kind of person. And I want to make sure that she has a home that comes back to that's not messy, and that she's getting her feet rubbed every night, and legitimately that's one of our love languages apparently. um and that we're taking care of each other. So I continue to expect myself to be a good husband, a good father. And this next year is me really moving forward with this business, the life ADHD life coaching and relationship coaching business. I really want to get this off the ground. I want to be that 25% of people who make it to the past the first year of business. I want to be. I expect myself to be on a lot more podcasts promoting ADHD and understanding how to deal with ADHD, and promoting my message of how normalcy is bullshit. And I expect myself to just have a lot more of my business plans ironed out the way that I want them to be. I want to do group coaching eventually. I want to use my skills as a dungeon master to facilitate communication and role playing between multiple people, working together through their problems, working together through their differences and their similarities, and kind of bouncing ideas off of each other on how they can improve each other's lives. And so that's my first year. 5 years, man, I have ADHD, and this is one of those things that is really difficult for people with ADHD to actually plan for and goal for. We don't think very far into the future. It's very, very difficult for us, especially for me, since I don't have that ability to visualize. And so 5 years down the road, honestly, I couldn't tell you. I'm not, you know, I think differently than other people do.
Right.
Everybody, it's not an excuse or anything like that. You just have to deal with the limitation that you're given.
Okay.
I do have some ideas of what I want to do.
Right.
I do have some concepts of what I want to do,
Okay.
but you know, I I don't feel that right now I don't. This is one of those eloquence issues that I'm having. I don't have the ability right now to focus that far into the future to make
Understood.
ironclad plans. Um, it's going to be a continuation of what I'm already doing, but I want to be better at it.
Of course.
You know what I mean? I want to constantly improve.
There you go.
That's my big overarching. When I'm 75, I want to look back and say I constantly got better.
Okay.
I was here, and I'm now here. That's where I want to be. And if for the people podcasting, I'm holding my hands, doing the space thing.
Right.
And so I want to be able to sit here and say in 10 years that my kids now are healthy. They understand how to live their lives. They understand how to that they can come to me for the issues that they're dealing with. I want to be able to tell my oldest son, like, I want to be able to have that relationship with him, that he knows that no matter what, I'm going to be there supporting him. For my oldest daughter, I want her to know that if anything happens to her, I'm here. I don't care where she's at. I will always be there for her. And you know I want to continuously learn from the mistakes I know I'm going to make.
That's good. And
That's how
that's
we get
important.
better.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's important. Being able to understand that we're not perfect and that we're
Mhm.
going to screw up, especially as a parent, a stay-at-home dad, you're dealing with the kids, you deal with life, and sometimes we don't handle situations the best. But being able to recognize how to handle a situation and in turn handle it in front of your kids and let them see that you're fallible and that you can make a mistake and that you can be wrong and that you can apologize to your child. It's little things like this that, because kids, they keep everything, they soak it up. Little things like this just builds a self-esteem. My dad's not perfect, my mom's not perfect, they apologize, they make mistakes, but they're still okay. These are little things, but until you become a parent, you don't really appreciate it. So I really like the fact that you're in being better. It's a simple concept, but it's not that easy to do. So I applaud you for wanting to do that. I definitely applaud you.
And the key is it's very trite to say this, but you're competing with yourself. That where did I hear that from? Who played Killmonger on
Killmonger's Michael B. Jordan, right?
Thank you. Michael B. Jordan said that.
Mhm.
The only competition that you have with your in anything that matters is yourself.
Right.
And if you're constantly moving forward from the baseline that you're living now, then you are doing what you're supposed to do. Like, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It doesn't matter who's got what. It doesn't matter anybody else's success. What you focus on is you need to do better for yourself against yourself.
Okay.
And that struck me really hard. And I really hated that I didn't remember his name, but that's how memories work.
I agree.
Um, and I just, not only do I have to teach my kids how to just have a trusting environment at home, I also have to teach my kids that other adults are not going to get it. They're not going to understand. They're going to project an air of, I am perfect. I am an adult. You should listen to me. I am the authority. And my kids aren't going to do it. If you make a mistake, they're going to call you out on it. If
Right.
they're going to, I'm going to do my best to make it that they understand that they have to adhere to a certain set of social rules and stuff like that. And that there's boundaries that they have to respect, and that there's, guidelines that they need to follow, and I understand that. But at the same time, there's going to be a number of people who are going to that my kids are going to rub the wrong way because of the environment that I'm giving them, the freedoms that I'm giving them, the lessons I'm teaching them, and I'm hoping that they learn resilience from that. I'm really hoping that you know that they are able to both be tough enough to put up with those who are ignorant enough to do it, but at the same time be confident enough in themselves to know that's their issue. I'm taking care of me. I'm not hurting anybody else. You
That's
know,
good. That's good. Rolls right into the I in the word prize. So when you were talking, you talk about how a lot of these social constructs, a lot of these things that we deal with in life, as men, I feel like there's a lot of titles that are thrust upon us. So we are fathers, husbands, employees, best friends. We are all these things. So for me, the I in the word prize, I like to strip that off. So you're not dad, you're not husband, you're not employee of the month, you're not best friend. For you, at your core, who are you? What is your I when you take everything else out and it's just you in a room and we're talking about you self-care? What are you when there's nothing else at your most bare?
I love this question, and it's really fun because it lets me get to talk about ADHD again. Um, but no, who am I when there's nothing else involved? I put so much of myself in everybody around me that I lost that for a very long time. You have it as a child. Once you start learning your your ego, from or if not to get religious about this, but in Christianity, the age of reason's 8 or so. A lot of societies feel like, the age 9 to 10, all of that is kind of where children stop being children and they become more, that transitioning into adulthood, and they start to understand reasoning and logic and consequences and things like that. I had that as a small child of who I was and what I thought was right and how what that meant to me. But then I started absorbing, um, everybody else's around me, and that's a common thing that happens to children who are dealing with trauma and children who are, dealing with ADHD. They don't have their own inherent personality of who they are. They take what the social people around them show as positive traits that other people appreciate, and they start kind of making these Frankenstein monsters of what they feel like is socially, acceptable. And so for a very long time I lost that in myself. I lost myself to being like my friend Brian or being like my father, because he could make people laugh whenever he wanted to. um, but the problem is you start absorbing the negativity that creates those people. You can't escape it when you're allowing yourself to kind of be absorbed in it. And so when I turned 36 and I've discovered I had ADHD, and I discovered that all of these issues that I'd been dealing with all my life were because of not understanding what my issue was. I started really digging into who I was. And, I loved being able to say, I am a good father. I am a good husband. I love being able to show those accomplishments, but those aren't who I am. I am a creative. I am a person who wants to create things. I want to lead people forward. I want to teach people how to be themselves. I want to be somebody that people look at and say, okay, that makes sense. What you're saying makes sense. I want to be that old wise man. I am that person who helps other people. And in doing that, I create the world I want around me.
I like that answer. That's fantastic. I like that. To me, the reason the word prize works for me, obviously the letters I pick, but to me, the I is really what does it. Because I, like you, father, all these things, but I really figured out that I became good at whatever I do when I was content with myself,
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't have anything else, when I wasn't throwing any bitterness or anything at my kids or my wife or my friends, when I'm happy being Harvey, I can't help but be a better father because I'm more empathetic. I can't help but be a better husband because I understand what she's going through. Understanding you just makes you a better you. That sounds really trite, but I feel that's what it is. So I love
It
that
is.
idea.
And sometimes you fall into the triteness because it works. People, they hear the things that are familiar to them. It fits what they want. But, at the same time, people who are a little jaded or cynical, they hear that and they're like, oh, you're just repeating what. But look, no, this has worked for a large number of people. And what you've got here with this prize methodology is the I is surrounded by all of the things that make you who you are. And so, you know, when you're trying to develop, and this is relevant to my life coaching, when you're trying to develop a person's desires and dreams into a coherent goal setting, you have to first drill down into who that person is currently and who they want to be, and then you have to bridge that gap. And some people can do that on their own once they learn it, but a lot of people can't. A lot of people need that nudge. They need that guidance. They need help with problem solving. They need help with critical thinking and objective help. Somebody you can see, look on the outside. Hey, look, you're fucking up. Let's make it better. This is how we make it better. Let's walk together with it. Let's create the process that works for you.
So true. So true. Shane, I so appreciate you opening up and talking to me about this. Um, and I feel like I could talk with you all day, but what I would like to do is you tell us, anybody who's listening to this, how can they find you? Whether it's social media, whether it's a website, how can they find you so they can talk to you?
They can find me on Facebook at Shane Thrapp. I'm fairly easy to find on there. My business is called Creating Order from Chaos. You can find me at creatingorderfromchaos.com. You can find me on Facebook at Creating Order from Chaos Life Coaching. You can find me on LinkedIn, both as Shane Thrapp and Creating Order from Chaos. Follow me. You're going to find me on a lot of different podcasts and YouTube channels over the next few months. I love doing these kind of things. I don't have the energy to run my own one, so I'll just piggyback off of everybody else's effort. But you can find me on all those, and I just, what I want people to walk away from, with my business as a life coach and as a relationship coach is how to live their life the way that they want. And how I can help them is to help them each create a process that works for them, a customized process that works for them, because nobody is the same. Everybody is unique. Normal doesn't exist. We are all individual, unique human beings. We all have things in common, but just like, my eyes are green, your eyes are brown, that's a difference between us.
Right.
We're both stay-at-home dads,
Right.
so, but what I want people to walk away from this, and the reason why I'm really starting to coin the term freedom coach, is I want to teach people who are in the position that they are now how to expand out of that, grow, learn from what they need to learn from, and live the lives that they want to live, love the people who they want to love, be the person that they want to be happy in. And I think with working with each person and working with the different groups as a life coach, as a relationship coach, I really want to start seeing people breaking out of the social construct that we've created for them. Both in our education system and in our politics and our social society as it is. I want people to start breaking out of those expectations, because those expectations don't fit. They're not meant to fit. They're meant to be a kind of an average. And the way you get an average is you've got people hitting all these different points all over the board. We're not meant to be this line. We're meant to be who we are. That point in our life right there, that's who we're supposed to be. And I want people to learn that about themselves and to find that for themselves. And I want to be that guide for them. And so you can, like I said, you can find me at creatingorderfromchaos.com is the best way to do it.
Excellent. I will put all of the ways people can reach you in the episode notes. So thank you again, Shane. And the way I'll end is, I found a quote. Like I said, this is my thing. I love quotes. I think they're fun. So the quote I found as I was looking through, just reading your bio and just seeing about you, and it's this quote: "Courage is not having the strength to go on. It is going on when you don't have the strength." And that is Theodore Roosevelt.
Nice.
And
That's a good one.
And when you were talking about your life and it's hard, you're a kid. There's only so much you're supposed to deal with, but you had everything on you. You were dealing with all this garbage. And sometimes you just want to give up, but you don't give up. You keep going. When you think you can handle it, you still go forward. So I applaud you for just making it through a tough first half of the life and becoming a stronger, better man, and one who helps a lot of us in this world. So I hope this quote, I think it fits just your life and everything that you're doing. And again, I applaud you and thank you for giving me some time.
Yeah. Thank you for this Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. This actually helps me in my entire process to kind of get my message not only out there, but also ironed out. This helps me smooth things up and gives me the talking points and blogging points. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. And the pleasure was mine. So thank you to everyone who listened to this episode of the Men Are the Prize podcast, where your inner monologue is revealed. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.